A massive infrastructure law is signed today by President Joe Biden.
The infrastructure bill that will bring billions of dollars in improvements. I'll have more on where that money is going here in Utah.
It went from vehicular manslaughter to murder.
Coming up, after the sudden death of his wife in a car crash stemming from a police pursuit, a local man is fighting for change.
Right now, I'm tracking a cold front that's moving into northern Utah tomorrow morning. The impacts on your morning drive and just how low those temperatures will fall.
As COVID-19 rages on, the state is stepping up.
If you miss a shift, that may affect, your rent payment or mortgage payment.
The plan to help employees go out and get the vaccine.
We're not super encouraged at the moment.
And grim projections for a warmer, drier winter.
Grass that you don't ever actually use. It's just for looks.
Tonight, one Utah lawmaker says it's time to ditch our lawn and ban watering.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Tonight, a major victory for the Biden administration. The president signed into law a $1.2 trillion infrastructure bill today. The legislation will deliver $550 billion of new federal investments over 5 years.
The bipartisan law will modernize our ports, our airports, our freight rail to make it easier for companies to get goods to market, reduce supply chain bottlenecks as we're experiencing now, and lower cost for you and your family.
The package includes a $65 billion investment to improve the nation's broadband infrastructure and tens of billions of dollars for improving the electric grid, water systems, and building a nationwide network of plug-in electric vehicle chargers. But discontent over the pandemic and resulting economic problems, including record inflation, are contributing to President Biden's lagging popularity.
And tonight, the big question is, how will this impact Utah? Fox 13's Emily Tenser shows us where these funds will be heading here in the Beehive State and how it will affect you.
When it comes to roads and transportation, UDOT says it's a bit too early to know what specific projects these funds will be going toward. But as for Navajo Nation, the president tells me this money will help a lot of struggling families. Roads, bridges, water, and wastewater. These are just some of the focuses the $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure plan will go to improve.
To have that consistent funding source, it's an important step to make sure that we can deliver the program that we have here.
For the Utah Department of Transportation, John Gleason says state funding goes toward the big construction and expansion projects you see on highways and interstates.
The federal funds, we use those for the preservation and the rehabilitation projects. They help us maintain our roads.
Gleason says this federal funding is great news for Utah roads because there's now a consistent funding source.
That means that we can maintain our roads and keep them in good shape so that people can drive them safely.
For the Navajo Nation, this bill will help in various ways. President Jonathan Nez was in the nation's capital for the signing.
I think it is about time Indian country has a seat at the table, and that was evident today.
He says one of the biggest wins is the funding for running water and sanitation projects. 40% of Navajo people don't have running water.
The needs is great in Indian country, and just to be able to see the lawmakers supporting this bill and talk a bipartisan effort and getting it signed today was truly an awesome day to be a part of.
Nez says they've seen a lot of broken promises from the feds, but called Monday a historic day.
But I think there's a turning point. Of course, there's a lot more needs in Indian country than what is allocated, but this is a start.
This bill also authorizes $2 billion for the National Telecommunications and Information Administration's Tribal Broadband Connectivity Program, which is focusing on improving internet access in rural areas and tribal communities. Reporting in Salt Lake, Emily Tenser, Fox 13 News, Utah.
It was shocking how fast the speeds were and how long it was allowed to happen.
It's now been nearly 1 month since Trip Mims lost his wife T in a car crash in the Rose Park neighborhood of Salt Lake City. The car she was in was hit by a suspected DUI driver, allegedly leading a North Salt Lake police officer on a chase.
Fox 13's Brian Schnee spoke to him today about the changes he's pushing for to keep this sort of devastating thing from happening to other families.
This crash happened at over 75 miles an hour in a 30-mile-an-hour zone in a neighborhood.
On October 16th, the truck being followed by police slammed into another car in a Rose Park neighborhood.
The officer was also traveling that same speed.
The pursuit began in North Salt Lake, continued on I-15 before exiting the freeway and venturing into a residential area. The crash took the life of T. Vu Mims and badly injured her passenger, Deanna Martin.
T wasn't a stat. She's not a number. Unfortunately, she is included in this group that I'm talking about. And without proper policy, families are ripped apart violently.
T's husband is now fighting for change. Just last week, he and his son were here on Utah's Capitol Hill speaking with legislators about policies surrounding vehicle pursuits with law enforcement.
And I think that there is a direct need here in Salt Lake and in Utah as a whole for policy changes around police chases.
With policies and practices varying by the law enforcement agency, Tripp wants to see changes across the board.
Ultimately, there should be a policy in place for all of Utah around high-speed pursuits. At what point is it too dangerous?
There are protocols in place that should have prevented this, but they are not as stringent as they could possibly be.
Tripp presented some of his research on pursuits and shared his hopes with legislators. It's these potential changes that are already gaining some interest on Capitol Hill.
I definitely think this can move forward. I think there's a lot of interest on the Democratic side. I think there'll be some interest on the Republican side. Every legislature wants to make good policies, and this seems like these policies wouldn't be too far-reaching if we tried to change them a little bit.
Tripp knows the process could take quite a while, but he's prepared to fight for the sake of his family with hope of saving others.
T fought for justice, and so, I mean, what am I supposed to do? I have to, It's like, aside from taking care of my family, it's my life's mission right now.
Brian Schnee, Fox 13 News, Utah.
According to North Salt Lake Police, pursuits should end if the risk is continuing to be reasonable, if it appears to be outweighing the risks of the suspect escaping. Salt Lake City Police are investigating the crash in line with officer-involved critical incident protocol.
We've been enjoying some very nice weather over the weekend and playing now into tonight, Allison.
I know, and this will probably be our warmest night, venture to say, left this year maybe. Temperatures close to 50 degrees when you first wake up tomorrow morning. Still about 50 degrees currently. We have light wind out of the northwest, but tomorrow we're going to have much cooler air spilling in, so our warm temperatures are done. Right now, close to 50 for Provo, Salt Lake, and Ogden, 48 for Logan right now, 58 for St. George. And as we look at satellite and radar, a cold front is off to our northwest. We'll have some rain and snow associated with that. So when you wake up tomorrow morning, close to 50 degrees here along the Wasatch Front. Now, the setup that I do want to point out to you, 5 a.m. is going to be a little bit warmer than 7 and 9 a.m. So our temperatures will actually be a little bit on the decline when you first wake up tomorrow morning. Chance for a few showers early in the day, so we've got that as a possibility. But overall, a mild start tomorrow. Grab the umbrella when you head out the door, and keep in mind we're not going to warm up tomorrow. So if you're cool when you leave the house tomorrow morning, you'll be cool during the afternoon hours. I'll talk more about the timing and the impacts on your morning drive tomorrow coming up.
Allison, thank you so much. We do have an update now on breaking news we first brought you on Fox 13 News Live at 5. The incident at Hill Air Force Base earlier this afternoon has now been resolved. The base posted on Facebook just before 4 o'clock this afternoon that there was a security incident happening there on the base. They then posted about 2 hours later saying that it had returned to normal operations. The spokesperson at the base could not elaborate as to what happened.
Police in Sandy need your help finding a thief who stole $17,000 worth of items. Police say this man broke into a vehicle in a church parking lot yesterday, stealing the victim's garage door opener. Then the suspect got into the victim's home and stole cash, property, and even a handgun. The suspect drove a 2016 to 2019 white Nissan Sentra with 2 different sets of tire rims. If you have any information that can help, call Sandy Police.
Listen to this. A Utah man is accused of shooting at a pizza place after his order didn't go through. According to court documents, 32-year-old Paul Fracasco and another man went into the Papa John's in Draper last night asking about a call-in order. The employee told them their system was down, so phone orders just weren't showing up. Police say the men got upset and left as the employee was calling the police. Soon after, several gunshots hit the building. Luckily, no one was hurt.
Coming up on Fox 13 News at 9.
He broke down crying about himself, not about anybody that he hurt that night.
The fate of Kyle Rittenhouse is now in the hands of the jury. Hear more from closing arguments today.
In an effort to get more shots in arms, the state is now offering a program to help small businesses. We'll tell you who qualifies in a bit.
He's a criminal, a predator.
A Utahn convicted of fraud years ago is now being accused in a new scam. How one of his previous victims is responding.
Could BYU's Kalani Sitake be headed to USC or Washington? He'll address the coaching rumors coming up in sports.
New at 9, the Utah Attorney General's office has joined a lawsuit against the federal government over a vaccine mandate for healthcare workers.
The Biden administration has required the COVID-19 vaccine for healthcare workers in facilities that accept Medicaid or Medicare funding. That does affect major companies like University Health and Intermountain Healthcare here in the state. Now Utah has joined 10 other states to block that mandate, arguing it goes too far. The lawsuit was filed in Louisiana.
Jury deliberations are set to begin tomorrow morning after a long day of final arguments in the high-profile murder trial of 18-year-old Kyle Rittenhouse.
Isabel Rosales is on the ground in Kenosha with the latest.
Message to reason.
For nearly 2 hours, the prosecution laid out their final case against Kyle Rittenhouse Monday, claiming Rittenhouse went looking for trouble and went too far the night he shot 3 people, killing 2.
A lot of murder cases we're in here trying to convince a jury that the defendant killed somebody. That's not in dispute here. That's the easy part. The question is, does he get a pass?
Trying to portray Rittenhouse as an active shooter.
Someone who has just shot someone, who is still in possession of the gun, who is fleeing the scene. And how are we supposed to know where he's going next?
And taking a shot at Rittenhouse, having a breakdown on the stand last week.
He broke down crying about himself, not about anybody that he hurt that night.
Rittenhouse's attorney taking more than 2 hours to present their final defense, saying Rittenhouse had to shoot to save himself.
Every person who was shot was attacking Kyle. One with a skateboard, one with his hands, one with his feet, one with a gun. Hands and feet can cause great bodily harm.
And pushing back against the prosecution's active shooter portrayal.
Kyle was not an active shooter. That is a buzzword that the state wants to lash onto. My client didn't shoot at anyone until he was chased and cornered.
In Kenosha, Wisconsin, I'm Isabel Rosales.
Earlier today, the judge dismissed a misdemeanor weapons possession charge against Rittenhouse. The Wisconsin National Guard is currently on standby ahead of a verdict.
In Aurora, Colorado, 6 teens were shot in a drive-by shooting at a park by a high school this afternoon. Police say the teens, ages 14 to 18 years old, were all taken to the hospital. The extent of their injuries at this point tonight is still unknown. Authorities are searching for multiple shooters who fled the scene. Some of the suspects were reportedly on foot. The city police chief is now asking the public for help to catch the suspects.
So right now we're hearing that they're non-life-threatening injuries, but obviously anyone that's shot with a weapon, a gunshot, is serious. So we need lots of prayers.
Gang units with the Aurora and Denver police departments are handling the investigation. However, it's still unclear if the shooting was gang-related. All the victims are reportedly cooperating with police.
Steve Bannon, former advisor to President Trump, appeared in federal court today after surrendering himself to the FBI. He was indicted on Friday on 2 counts of contempt of Congress. Bannon has refused to comply with a subpoena from the House committee investigating the January 6th Capitol insurrection. Before turning himself in, Bannon was defiant when addressing TV cameras, saying, quote, "We're taking down the Biden regime." Bannon is set to be arraigned on Thursday. If convicted, he faces up to 1 year in jail for each of the 2 counts against him.
Conspiracy theorist and InfoWars host Alex Jones has been found liable for damages in lawsuits brought by parents of children killed in the Sandy Hook mass school shooting. The judge in Connecticut overseeing the defamation case cited Alex Jones' willful noncompliance for supplying necessary evidence in the trial as the reasoning for ruling against him. Jones previously claimed the massacre back in 2012 was a hoax. He has since acknowledged the shooting was indeed real. Wednesday, the judge will hold a hearing on how much Jones should pay in damages.
Well, it's a warm Monday here across the state. Tomorrow will be a warm morning, but then we're going to have a big cool down thanks to the timing of a cold front. But right now, it is still close to 50 degrees here in Salt Lake City. This is essentially where we're going to be for a high tomorrow. So we've got much cooler temperatures headed our way today. We weren't too far from a record high. 73 would have been a record. Today we made it to 66. 51 is a normal high this time of year. That sun will rise tomorrow about 7:15. And here's what you need to know. Much cooler temperatures tomorrow afternoon, but tomorrow morning it'll be a mild start. And then we'll have our first hard freeze for much of the Wasatch Front Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. And with our front tomorrow, we do have a chance for some rain and snow. So how much precipitation are we talking about, and will we have any travel impacts? I'll get to that answer in just a second. But right now on our satellite and radar here across northern Utah, a lot of clouds here across the Salt Lake Valley, down through Provo, up through Ogden, Logan, Harriman, Salt Lake City, cloudy right now. We've got cloudy sky. It's filled in all the way into southeastern Utah. So it's quite a different scene than it was earlier today and earlier this weekend. Temperature-wise, still feeling really good up in Ogden at 53, 48 for Provo right now, 45 for Logan for what it feels like. Wendover, Ely, and Elko all in the mid-40s. Now, tomorrow morning here in Salt Lake City, we're going to have the chance for a few showers about 7, 8 a.m. as a cold front passes. The best window for that front to pass will be between 7 and 9 a.m. And then our temperatures at 7 o'clock will still read close to 50 degrees. We're waking up in Provo, mid-40s, low 50s for Salt Lake at that time, 49 for Ogden, 43 for Logan at 7 a.m. And then by tomorrow at 3 o'clock, we are still in the low 50s, so if you are a little chilly when you head out the door tomorrow morning, you'll want to keep that in mind. Sometimes we can layer this time of year, and if you're just going to run out the door and then be outside later in the afternoon, you only need a thin jacket. But tomorrow, we're going to still need that warmer jacket during our afternoon hours. So let's track this front as it approaches tomorrow morning. It's going to pass the Salt Lake Valley and will pass the Cottonwood Canyons between 7 and 9 a.m. It'll get down into Utah County between about 8 and 10 a.m. And then we'll have that moving on further south. Behind it, take a look at the clearing of the clouds. That's going to be really nice. But you'll see the sunshine, and comes at a cost, because with less clouds tomorrow night, those temperatures are going to spiral, and it's going to be very cold come Wednesday morning. Then our chance of precipitation increases again. So tomorrow we're isolated to widely scattered here in Salt Lake City. We dry out until Thursday. We'll see those chances for rain rising again, becoming about widely scattered to scattered here in Salt Lake City for Friday night. So we'll have a chance for some rain as we start the weekend. And it's going to be another somewhat weaker system moving through. So for St. George, you're close to 65 to 70 for the next week. Overnight temps around 40 in St. George starting tomorrow night. And here in Salt Lake City, take a look at these overnight lows. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, 27, 28 on Wednesday night, Thursday morning. And then we'll keep our temperatures in the 50s through the rest of our 7-day forecast, with Wednesday being our coldest day, a high of 43. We'll talk more about how much precipitation you can expect and the snow levels coming up later in the hour.
The places that we call home are impacted by trees and our access to fresh air.
Today was a breath of fresh air for Mayor Mendenhall and Salt Lake City. See the milestone the mayor reached and how she hopes it'll help the entire Salt Lake Valley.
Plus, we take a look at some of the changes coming to Utah's ski resorts this year. We'll be right back.
It was a milestone for Salt Lake City Mayor Erin Mendenhall today as she planted her 1,000th tree this year. The mayor has vowed to plant 1,000 trees every year she's in office. This year, she wanted to focus on making Salt Lake City's west side more green. Volunteers joined her in placing a tree at the International Peace Gardens. This whole process is symbolic for Mayor Mendenhall.
Planting trees is a legacy, so we're making infrastructure, economic investments, housing investments, community support investments, but we also need to be working with the very ground that we walk on.
The mayor has asked the people living next to these new trees to water and care for them whenever they can.
After an unusual ski season last year, Utah resorts now gearing up for a return to normal this season. And today, Ski Utah held an event to showcase some pretty big upgrades resorts have added. Take a look here.
The outdoor experience that we'll have this year will be our amazing Utah that you've known for many, many years.
Wow, amazing. This year, places like Alta have widened popular trails. In Nordic Valley, they've even opened 4 brand new trails. They're growing. Powder Mountain and Park City have upgraded their ticketing, while Snow Basin and Sundance have both added hundreds of new parking spaces.
Probably the most exciting upgrade is a new chairlift. Our previous lift, Middle Bowl, it was a 3-person lift that was almost 50 years old. It's being replaced with Middle Bowl Express. The capacity will double from 3 to 6.
Oh, that means you get to the top faster, right?
That's
With that
right.
new chair. This year, many resorts have upgraded their snowmaking equipment, but a lot of them, they're just going to wait around for the freezing temperatures to really take advantage. Opening dates are fluctuating, so for an updated list of resort opening dates, we have it on our website, fox13now.com.
Coming up after the break.
Go Utah is starting an employee vaccination grant to help reduce barriers to getting the vaccine. We'll tell you more about this program in just a few.
I mean, you put your trust into someone, you hope your investment is safe.
A convicted house flipping scammer back at it again. How he allegedly continued stealing from Utahns, even from inside a jail cell.
Native languages get a boost from a new initiative coming up. A look at where languages in Utah come from.
The Utes and Aggies still battling for conference championship titles. We'll hear from both head coaches coming up.
In an effort to get more Utahns vaccinated, the state is offering to help small businesses pay for employees who need to take time off to get the shot.
Fox 13's Eliana Sheriff shows us how the program works.
Really, overall, the goal is just to get shots in arms, and hopefully we can support that.
Some vaccine hesitancy comes from those concerned about taking time off. This is what a survey conducted by the Utah Department of Health found.
The hourly workers, I mean, if you missed a shift and you're missing $300 or $400 that shift, that may affect, your rent payment or mortgage payment for those employees.
That's why Go Utah is offering an employee vaccination grant. To qualify, businesses have to have less than 50 full-time Utah employees who work 40 hours or more. And this grant can also help parents who either need to take time off to get their child vaccinated or to care for their child if they have an adverse reaction to the vaccine.
We're really targeting the hourly worker. So if it's restaurants or other small businesses that the employees normally would not receive paid time off, we're really trying to support that, the hourly worker.
And for workers who rely on tips, those tips are also factored into what's reimbursed.
So what we build into the grant program also is paying those, including gratuity. So if you're making $3 an hour as a server, you're making $50 in tips per shift, then we'll reimburse those costs.
Also written into the program, the employer can't keep a record of vaccination.
They are sending us some documentation that the employee did receive the vaccination, but then we'll review it and destroy it and the employers will also commit to destroying the records.
The Small Business Employee Vaccination Grant has received $500,000 in Federal CARES Act funds. Grants will be offered to employers on a first-come, first-served basis. Eliana Sheriff, Fox 13 News, Utah.
West Valley City Police are investigating what could be a homicide after a SWAT standoff with a domestic violence suspect. Police say they were called by a victim to a house near 33rd South and 4700 West on Friday night. She says she'd been held hostage and abused since November 1st by 50-year-old Garmin Cunningham. She also told officers she witnessed Cunningham murder an unidentified woman. During the SWAT situation, Cunningham did fire a shot at police. He eventually came out armed with a sword. He also tried to run, but with the help of canine officers, police were able to take him into custody.
A Utah man has been accused of swindling nearly $2 million from local victims, running an alleged day trading scheme.
As Fox 13's Lauren Steinbrecher explains, this is not the first time this man has been thrown in jail for fraud.
We first reported on Brett Cartwright back in 2018 when he was convicted of a house flipping scam. His past victims are now wondering why he was only given a slap on the wrist the first time and how his alleged scams were allowed to continue after that.
The Facebook page looks professional enough. Brett Cartwright, day trader and Forex coach with 2 decades experience. And look at that, 5-star reviews.
He's been doing this for years and years and years.
Julene Kafensis will tell you, don't believe a word of it.
He's a criminal, a predator.
She trusted Cartwright with over $60,000 of her savings a decade ago. Back then, Cartwright was pretending to flip houses, but pocketing what investors gave him. We did a couple stories in 2018 when Cartwright was finally convicted of a felony for scamming at least 4 parties out of more than $140,000.
It is the worst feeling in the world, especially, you put your trust into someone, you hope your investment is safe.
Unfortunately, it seems even more people now understand that feeling. According to new court documents, some filed just a couple weeks ago, less than 9 months after Cartwright's 2018 2-month jail sentence for the house flipping scam, while he was on probation, he was allegedly back at it again.
I'm really a longer-term day trader. That's what I prefer to do.
This time, people gave Cartwright money to open new trading accounts and day trade when in fact a majority of funds was used to finance Cartwright's personal lifestyle and his personal day trading ventures. One victim from Riverton gave Cartwright $1.5 million to invest in day trading. Another from St. George, nearly $250,000, documents say. This apparently went on from early 2019 until a few months ago. Julene says during this time, she was barely even getting her restitution payments.
Well, he stopped payments for one, he got behind. The payments are so small, it's like a slap in the face.
Then in June of this year, after Cartwright was arrested on securities fraud and money laundering charges, court docs say he called his dad Marvin Cartwright from jail and gave Marvin explicit instructions on what to tell the victim on another investment opportunity. Which is why Marvin is also now facing charges. For Julene, it's deja vu as she wonders how this is allegedly happening again.
What a slap in the face, like it's a joke, really. He's sitting in jail and still scamming people.
She's hoping the court system handles things differently this time around.
Like he really needs to do some hard time. They need to liquidate his assets, which he has, and pay people back.
No comment from the Department of Commerce or Attorney General's office on this case. To date, Julene estimates she's received somewhere around 5% of the full restitution. In studio, Lauren Steinbrecher, Fox 13 News, Utah.
This is a big nod. The Space Dynamic Lab at Utah State University has been awarded 2 contracts by the Department of Defense agencies worth $1.3 billion. According to the contracts, Space Dynamics will be working on testing sensors and systems on space vehicles. They will also be working on the research, development, and engineering of state-of-the-art space-based sensor systems.
Still to come on Fox 13 News at 9, there could be big changes for Utahns and the role they play in avoiding drought. We'll explain what one Utah lawmaker is proposing that could be pivotal in saving water.
Not great news for the state that we might be again dealing with a dry, warm period.
Well, the latest forecast models are calling for a warmer, drier winter. That puts drought restrictions back on the table for next year.
But Fox 13 News is getting a preview of new legislation cracking down on wasted turf. Fox 13's Ben Winslow has the story from Utah's Capitol Hill.
It's a good news, bad news situation for Utah's water supply right now.
Well, we're seeing a mixed range of conditions right now on the ground.
The good news is soil moisture is up. That means any rain or snow that hits the ground goes into reservoirs. The bad news,
we're not super encouraged at the moment. The snowpack, particularly in southern Utah, is below average for this time of year. It's very early in the snow season to get too up in arms either direction. It certainly would be nice to see some more snow up in our mountains on the ground throughout the state.
Most reservoirs right now are at about 50% capacity, which is more than normal for this time of year.
Part of that was Mother Nature helping us out. Part of that was the people around the state doing hard work to slow down how much water they were using.
But with forecast models calling for a warmer, drier winter, that means it's likely drought-related restrictions will be in effect again next year. Here on Capitol Hill, lawmakers are already working on a range of water conservation legislation.
That is water that could go into the Great Salt Lake. That's water that could go to farmers. That's water that could be used in so many other ways, and we just don't have the water to waste.
Representative Robert Spendlove is drafting a bill to help get rid of what he's termed non-functional turf, like these grass strips outside businesses in the International Center.
Which means grass that you don't ever actually use. It's just for looks.
He's proposing incentives for people to get rid of their lawns. New government buildings must have no more than 20% grass, and existing government buildings must cut their water use by 25%. He's also considering a bill to undo city and HOA requirements that homes even have grass.
For decades, cities and HOAs have been requiring people to put in grass. And a big part of this is just kind of undoing those government regulations and allowing people to decide what's the best landscaping for them.
On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Still ahead, what's the story with a bear roaming around one Utah neighborhood in broad daylight? We'll explain when we come back.
With success comes opportunity. BYU's Kalani Sitake will address the rumors he's a candidate for other coaching jobs. And the Utes and Aggies still in contention for conference championships. We'll hear from both head coaches on this week's games.
Welcome back, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Fox 13 News at 9 on this Monday evening. Another gorgeous day coming off a weekend that was hopefully perfect for you. At least it was weather-wise.
And tonight is another beautiful night out there.
The warm before the storm, perhaps.
Right, yeah.
Fox 13 meteorologist Allison Krogan. We'll have your first alert forecast coming up in just a few minutes. Some big changes coming our way.
Today, 3 U.S. cabinet secretaries announced a federal government initiative to support Native American languages.
And as part of our coverage of Native American Heritage Month, Fox 13's Max Roth goes in depth on the origins of Native language, spoken right here in the state of Utah.
The U.S. government actively worked to eradicate native languages for more than a century, and some have been forgotten. The cabinet secretaries today point to those sins of the past as a reason to renew a promise for the future.
Gwatsi Hopa, Duhiname Itzakuitse Shuimihanu. Good afternoon, esteemed colleagues, leaders, and friends.
Interior Secretary Deb Haaland speaks the tongue of her people of the Laguna Puebla in New Mexico. It's related to the Navajo tongue, which is spoken more than any other native language in North America. Native languages can be as different from each other as French is from Russian. Utah's Navajo speak a language with ties to Canada and Alaska. The language family has been called Athabascan, though the more up-to-date term is Na-Dene. And you hear that echoed in what the Navajo call their own language, Dene Bizad. The other language family tied to Utah is called Uto-Aztecan, and you can see its ties to Mexico and Central America. Utah's Utes, Paiutes, Goshutes, and Shoshone speak Uto-Aztecan languages. The Smithsonian provides recordings of some common words in Navajo, a Na-Dene language, and Comanche, an Uto-Aztecan language. You can hear the difference. The word for sun in Navajo, and in Comanche. Bird in Navajo, and in Comanche. What is your name in Navajo
Hashinilia
and in Comanche?
Anahakai Nanhiak.
I asked a Ute language educator this morning about trying to preserve her language, and she stopped me to say she doesn't like that word, try. It's not just try, because language is essential to who we are, she said. And then she asked me where my family came from and told me to start studying Norwegian. In studio, Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
A bear caused quite a commotion in Richfield this morning. Police posted this photo of a bear hanging out in a tree. Now, this isn't in the woods. The bear had wandered into a neighborhood in Richfield and was peering down on residents from above. Wildlife officials were called out to get her down. They used a tranquilizer dart and then a rope to lower her to the ground so she wouldn't be hurt. Police say the bear will be relocated.
Relocated to a place where she can climb as many trees as she wants.
Yeah, you have trees in your yard, don't you?
Taken down. It was such a nice day. That bear was just, kind of.
Well, you have trees in your yard, right? Yeah.
I do, yes. Naked trees at this point, because I think we raked up every single leaf.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the bear will do some raking, then yeah, sure, come on over. But hey, tomorrow's going to be a lot colder during our afternoon compared to today. Right now, it's still pretty mild, 49 in Salt Lake, 53 for Ogden, and down in Provo, 48 degrees currently in Utah County. As we look at your hour-by-hour forecast, 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, we are still close to 50 degrees for Ogden, Salt Lake, and Provo. Low 40s for Logan. Our cold front is going to arrive between 7 and 9 a.m. here across the Salt Lake Valley for the Cottonwood Canyons. That will continue to move into Utah County between 8 and 10 a.m. And we're going to end up with some light precipitation up in the mountains for snowfall, and here in the valleys we'll have a little bit of rain. So by 4 o'clock tomorrow, we are still close to 50 degrees. That's the main takeaway with this cold front, is it's going to bring much colder temperatures here across the state. So the cold front reaches the Salt Lake Valley 7 to 9 a.m. Light snow in the mountains, mostly 1 to 3 inches of snow. And for our snow levels, that'll start out about 8,000 feet and then eventually drop between 6,000 and 7,000 feet by tomorrow afternoon. But again, the main takeaway, biggest impact for the majority of you the next couple of days will be much colder temperatures. For St. George, your temperatures are still really comfortable for your 7-day forecast. You're about 65 to 70 through next Monday with our overnight temperatures around 40. And for Salt Lake City for tomorrow in your super 7-day forecast, tomorrow 52 degrees for a high here in Salt Lake City. Those temperatures remain steady throughout the day, so we hardly climb at all tomorrow temperature-wise. By Wednesday, we're mostly sunny, 43 degrees for a high, but Wednesday morning we're going to be in the upper 20s. So that is going to be our first freeze here in Salt Lake City, which puts us at a tie for our latest first freeze. We typically have that in mid part of October 19th here in Salt Lake City. By Thursday, partly cloudy sky, 53 degrees here in Salt Lake. We see a chance for a few showers tomorrow. We dry out heading into Wednesday and Thursday. By Thursday night into Friday, we start seeing a few more chances for some rain to arrive. And then we look at the forecast for your future cast on Friday. Temperatures on Friday, 54 degrees for a high, but let's look at this future cast for Friday. We're going to have another system that's going to brush northern Utah. So we'll take you through the day on Friday, and we're going to have that possibility of some valley rain and mountain snowfall. And depending on the timing of that, could see that transitioning to a mixture here in the valleys, or depending on how heavy that precipitation is, we could end up with seeing maybe even a little bit of snow down to the valley floors. But Saturday and Sunday, partly cloudy on Saturday. If you are going to be skiing this weekend up in the mountains, temperatures will be in the mid to upper 20s between 8 a.m. and lunchtime. Going to be a very cool day up in the Cottonwood Canyons. By Sunday, heading into Thanksgiving week for days 6 to 10, our rain outlook looks dry here across the state, and then our temperatures will remain close to 50 degrees by next Monday. And next week with Thanksgiving, it looks like right now the models have us trending dry, so hopefully no problems for traveling on Thanksgiving Day.
It's a big week for the Utes. The top 2 teams in the Pac-12, Utah and Oregon, will square off this Saturday at Rice-Eccles Stadium in a possible preview of the Pac-12 championship game. The Utes lead the Pac-12 South at 6-1. The Ducks lead the North at 6-1. Oregon's also in the hunt for a national championship. They're third in the college football playoff rankings. Utes have had some success against Oregon. They're just 2-5 against them since joining the Pac-12, but with 2 big wins in 2015 and 2018. But it'll be a tough matchup this Saturday.
We went up there a few years back and got them pretty good. We beat them here, 2 or 3 years ago. Tons of talent across the board. The defensive end, both defensive ends actually, are tremendous players. The linebacker, quarterback's a big, strong kid, runs the ball well. Offensive line is talented. The skill positions are loaded, and doing a good job running the football. They're always talented. They're always, just tough matchups.
Utah State continues to lead the Mountain Division in the Mountain West Conference with 2 games remaining against Wyoming this week and New Mexico next week. The Aggies have come a long way from just 1 win last year to a conference title contender this year.
Proud of the progress that we've made, how the guys have just continued to battle to get better. The energy on the sideline was amazing all night. If you've seen the videos of the dudes dancing, I mean, they're just having a blast playing ball with it together. And I love that about this group. I think they deserve it with all they've been through and the work they've given us. It fills your heart to see them have fun. And the fact that we're competing here for some very meaningful games to finish this season is even more exciting for them.
BYU's coming off a bye week with 2 games remaining at Georgia Southern this Saturday, then USC next week. The Cougars have played great the last 2 seasons under Kalani Sitake, which is why his name is out there for other jobs like USC and Washington. He was asked about that today.
I mean, I know why you guys are asking those questions and things like that, but I'm focused on getting our team ready for Georgia Southern. Whether you asked that question back in August, September, October, and now in November, the answer is still the same. I'm trying to take this thing week by week and focus on getting these guys ready to play at their best. So all my attention can only go to the boys and trying to give the fans what they want this weekend, which is performing at our best. And I think if we do that, we'll be happy with the result.
It's great to see all 3 FBS teams in the state doing well. We'll be right back.
Finally tonight, a California nonprofit has broken the Guinness World Record for the longest line of socks.
Oh, gosh.
7 miles of
7
socks.
miles?
7 miles. Volunteers and staff of the Fresno Mission started a sock drive months ago. Said it took more than 6 months to collect what they needed. On Saturday, they finally had enough. And that's when they laid it all out on the line, so to speak.
They hung it all up.
And 80,000 pair of socks, they're going to a good cause, handing them out to the home.
Now, who's going to match all those up?
We'll leave it to the end user.
Quick Cast is next.